Alright, what's going on, guys? Trev back again, here to bring you another video. This one's going to be doing my review for the Walking Dead special release in hardcover form of Here's Negan.
What should we do with the ones who won't subscribe?
Bring them to me. And spoiler warning, if you guys have not read Here's Negan yet, I am going to be spoiling it in this review. We're going to go through all the juicy details. And as I said in yesterday's video, I want to thank everybody for contributing to the Patreon for Trev's Chan 2. Link will be in the description if you want to sign up to tip $1, pledge $1 to the channel. It helps me get stuff like this and lights and things like that I can use for the channel, so that's wicked cool. So this release, awesome. You can pick it up on Amazon, but a lot of comic book shops will have it or bookstores will have it. This is the hardcover release, Walking Dead, Here's Negan, and I was pretty excited for this one. I love the cover. You've got original Here's Negan artwork from Charlie Adler here. You've got the Here's Negan in blood red. You've got some blood splatter all down the side. The Walking Dead in black, which I really love. And, you know, on the back, you've got Who is Negan? So they go into a little bit, you know, of, there's just a little blurb. I'll just read it. Since his debut in The Walking Dead issue 100, the charismatic psychopath has antagonized Rick Grimes, murdering his friend with a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire, which he calls Lucille, and led the Saviors into all-out war against Alexandria and the neighboring communities. But who was he before society broke down? That question will finally be answered in this collection. And it actually is. You know, this one-shot type of deal was released in the Image Plus, you know, in just these very few page increments for Here's Negan last year, and I did reviews for each issue as we went through it. Even though each issue was only a few pages, it was still actually pretty sweet to get to see it if you're a big fan of The Walking Dead, to get to see this guy's, you know, Negan's origin, because, you know, up until, like with a lot of our characters in The Walking Dead, we get to understand their backstory. But the way Negan comes in as a villain in issue 100, and in the TV series as well too, we don't get to see a lot of, you know, how he became Negan. He's got a pretty cool angle. He's got the baseball bat Lucille wrapped in barbed wire. He sounds insane. He sounds crazy. How can you explain this behavior of this new character that finds it so much fun to bash people's heads in? So, as it turns out, we see him here, and he is basically a high school gym teacher. He's like a high school gym teacher coach, and we first see him playing ping pong and you know, making fun of one of the boys he's playing against, high school student. He says to him, "If I had a wrist that weak, I need 3 pictures of your mom to blow my load." Now, which one of you little pricks is next? Of course, the kid goes off crying, and Negan is worried because he's going to get himself in trouble because, you know, he's not supposed to be picking on the kids and stuff like that. So his wife is worried. So we find out pretty quickly, like I said, spoilers, that his wife was named Lucille. And, you know, as we see pretty quickly in the release here, she is sick. So something has happened to her. She's sick. She kind of passes out, and you know, she has to go to the hospital. So we find out mainly that his wife is diagnosed with, you know, some kind of, let's see here, does it actually say in particular? Cancer, yeah. So she has cancer. We find this out from Negan as he's with another woman cheating on his wife, which I would assume, you know, makes it even worse, considering that his wife has cancer and he's still cheating on her. So Negan is one that I would say has a very weak superego. He doesn't have that much empathy. He's not very, he's very id-based, and he doesn't really feel as sorry for others as probably most people do. Most people, if they found out their wife was having cancer, they probably wouldn't cheat on her afterwards. Or probably, most people would cheat on their wives to begin with. But if there are someone who cheated on their wife and they found out their wife has cancer, they'd probably stop. Negan doesn't really stop right away, or at least not at the very beginning. And he spends, you know, some happy time with his wife here. It looks like he does stop afterwards and has some self-control there. And you know, spends the remaining amount of time with his wife that she has in the hospital. And she, of course, does die. And then we get to see kind of the start of the zombie apocalypse here as the world is kind of coming to an end. And Negan doesn't really know, because from his perspective, he's totally zeroed in and focused on his wife, who's very sick. Right here, you can see it here, and is dying. And, you know, he's he's just kind of dealing with that, and then she turns right here into a walker and kind of goes after him. And, kind of one of these types of origins. So, in some ways you could parallel it with Rick. Rick wakes up in the hospital because he's sick or he's been shot and he's, has to heal and he's in his coma and that kind of thing. And he finally wakes up. Well, Negan, it's kind of the opposite. He loses his wife in the hospital and, he quickly becomes a savage, having to go and kill the walkers that he finds around. So the rest of it, as we go through, so that's the beginning of it, is to kind of get an understanding of that. The rest of it is kind of just little snapshots of Negan's time in the zombie apocalypse. And his time in the zombie apocalypse is not really, I would say, the same as Rick and our usual group. For Negan, his time in the zombie apocalypse is really about, most of it is having, trying to protect people, them mostly dying. For example, he meets this one kid here in the hospital, and he's quickly bitten, and Negan says, fuck, because as it goes through, Negan is very strong. He's kind of athletic, you could say, because he is a gym teacher, so he's got to stay in shape when he's coaching the kids and all that kind of thing. So he's in really good shape as an adult, I would say. He's good with a bat, obviously. He uses that. There's also parts in here where he's using guns and that kind of thing. And he finds out pretty quickly that he is very, very good with a bat as he's killing, all these zombies here. And, he's got a rifle as well, too. But, he seems to be, kind of realizes pretty quickly that a bat is really useful because you can be, killing zombies with it, and it doesn't make as much noise as firing off a gun, I would suppose. Even though it does, there's going to be like a clang or something when you're crushing skulls with a bat. So he goes through, and you have these people that are, kind of coming up to him because he's strong. They want to be a part of his group, or they want to be with him. And one after another, we get to see them die, pretty quickly until eventually he meets Dwight, which is kind of cool here in the comic book series version. As Dwight kind of walks up on him and introduces himself, of course Sherry was with him, and Negan kind of pretty quickly becomes the leader of that too, just because of his tenacity, I want to say, and his skills with the bat to lead a group through, to be able to clear out crowds of zombies, to be able to get in and out of places. He's a monster. He's a monster with the bat. He's so good with it. He's able to get through and keep himself alive, even though other people are not, as good with their weapons and are sometimes getting bitten and are sometimes dying. So he's losing a lot of different people that he meets throughout his time in the zombie apocalypse. We see him find his jacket here, which is kind of cool, and we've got some other kind of conflicts starting with other groups. So you have other groups that kind of come towards his group and try to kind of, lord it over them. And similar to, I guess in that way, it's kind of similar to Rick and the others as their time in the zombie apocalypse goes through. And they do meet different threats, such as the governor and people like that. For Negan here as well, too, he does run into other groups that are kind of a threat. And this one here, where he kills this one guy who is part of a group that is a threat to his group and kind of is trying to control them and that kind of thing and do what they want with them. Forging Lucille here in front of the fire with the barbed wire. And after he kills the one of them, he kind of comes over and lets the others know that he says, "It's time. I told you about Lucille." So he tells the backstory of her, and let's see here. So we're your saviors. So that's an important part right there, where he refers to Dwight and his group as the saviors to this other group that seemed to be formidable, seemed to be kind of stronger than them. Negan was able to take out one of them brutally with the bat, and then use that to intimidate the others into listening to him. One of the guys here says. Right here says to him, this is the last page right here, here's Negan. Kind of like, here's Johnny, here's Negan. The one guy says to him, "Are you crazy? How do you expect us to watch you murder one of our own and then turn around and fall in line behind you?" And then Negan says, "Look at this big bald MFer right here." I like that. That's useful. So here's what I'd say, big balls. Fall the fuck in line, or I'll crawl up that pee hole of yours, get really deep inside so I could really get a message to those big balls without anything getting lost in translation. And I'll say, "Big balls, I know you think you're the king shit of Fuck Mountain, and you're not accustomed to taking shit from anyone, but things are different now because here's Negan, and that's how it ends off there. So you get kind of the concept of where he beats one down to intimidate the others, and the kind of the start to the savior. So this kind of concept, and the reason why he does that in the Walking Dead TV series version, he beats two of them, Abraham and then Glenn. But he does that to kind of break them in or fall them in line because it seems to work. And in this version too, it's kind of accidental. It just kind of happens. One of the guys kind of stands up to him, and he gets into it with one of the guys. The guy almost gets him, but then Negan is able to kill him in this fight right here. So afterwards, I guess he just noticed the effect that it had when the guy was just getting bashed after he bashed his head in, basically. How everybody else around him was just like so shocked and everything that they just quickly, through fear and intimidation, fell in line. So that's in a nutshell. I mean, of course, you can buy it if you want to, read every panel and everything. It's time I told you about Lucille, and you see a lot of the heads being smashed here. So, of course, you can read if you want to see all the different little details of every page. I'm not going to go through every line in Here's Negan, but I felt like this one, is a really cool collectible for fans of The Walking Dead that do like Negan or that want to know Negan's backstory. And how well it kind of quickly puts it together, because the way it was released was in these 4-page, kind of magazine releases over the course of the year. And, I really love that they put this collection together so that you can just buy this and get a good understanding of who Negan is and how he became the way he became. It makes you sympathize a bit for him, I want to say, because, you can understand how he came so cold during the zombie apocalypse when everybody that pretty much, came to him for protection ended up being killed at one point or another, and the ones that survived were actually the ones that were, I suppose the strongest, or the ones that fell in line behind him as just a very, very strong leader, with the bat to lead, and also, of course, the reveal that Lucille, the bat, is named after his wife, Lucille, and, his life beforehand, too, as a high school teacher, coach, this kind of deal. So yeah, I mean, it's a good release. In terms of I like to score everything. I can't really score it because it's a one shot, so it's not a regular volume like some of the other volumes we have for The Walking Dead. It's going to be polarizing. If you hate Negan, you're not going to like it, guaranteed, because you're not going to care about his backstory. But I do think that if you're interested, if you're a hardcore Walking Dead fan, then you would really like this. I loved it, of course, because Negan is one of my favorite characters from The Walking Dead. And if it wasn't for a release like this, and getting to see this kind of, explanation for how Negan became Negan, how he became leader of the Saviors, how he got there, and have it make sense, which is what this does for us. This is a critical piece to the Walking Dead puzzle, I would say, because he's the biggest villain in The Walking Dead. Even now in the comic book series, it's way later than issue 100. It's, like issue 173, 174. At this time, all those issues later, I would still say Negan is the best villain in The Walking Dead. And this volume certainly, I think, aided to that. Because without it, we wouldn't really understand a lot of these things or maybe sympathize with them at all. So in that way, it's genius. Also, the fact that it's an extra release, so you don't, it's not included in the Walking Dead, monthly releases. It was additional to that, and they managed to find a way to deliver it and get it out there. It's just, it's great. So it totally depends on, whether or not you like Negan, how you feel about Negan. For me, because I love Negan, I would, would have to rate over 9. I go 9.3 probably, or something like that. I love the beginning of it, especially. The ending's okay. The middle is pretty good, but for me, it starts off best with the reveal that Lucille was actually his wife who had cancer, and I think that's probably the most important, maybe the most important takeaway from the volume. Getting to see the start of the Saviors, though, with Dwight and the others is pretty cool as well, too, though. Awesome release, and like I said, thank you guys so much for contributing to the Patreon, so I was able to get this for us so we could go through it one more time. I have reviewed all the issues individually, but they're so broken up, it's like, So it's cool to get finally the entire release together. So if you guys got to read, let me know what you think about it. How do you feel about Negan? You know, the TV series version will probably be the same. Like, they probably won't change his job. He probably will end up being a high school teacher in the TV series version 2, JDM, so you can kind of picture that. And I hope eventually we'll get to see a flashback episode where they do basically here's Negan in an episode, because that will just be freaking gold to get to see that. I think people would really like that, and would also kind of make casual viewers forgive Negan a little bit for what he did to Glenn and Abraham. Maybe a little, even though it's still a pretty touchy subject. So maybe it'd be best done like next year or something in a flashback episode. It'd be really cool. Leave your comments below. Let me know what you guys think about Here's Negan. If you like this video, please thumb it up below. You can share, you can favorite, and if you're new and you want to subscribe to the channel, I would appreciate it, and you can do it at the bottom left. That's it for this one, guys. I'll see you again soon for another video. As always, this is Trev, and I'm saying peace. Later, guys. See ya.
You better subscribe.